Hello, friends. The truth is this: too many people are waiting for a green light that will never come. They're waiting for someone to say, "You're ready." Waiting for the perfect time, the perfect conditions, the perfect approval. And while they wait, life moves on without them. Today, I'm here to tell you, you don't need permission to reinvent yourself. You don't need anyone's signature to rewrite your story. Your life is yours to live, and you have the power to start over at any moment. Think about how much of your life you have spent waiting for someone to nod their head before you moved forward. Think about the times you've held your breath, hoping that someone would give you the green light. You had an idea, a dream, a vision, but you froze because you thought you needed permission. Maybe it was from your parents, maybe from a boss, maybe from society at large. And in that pause, that hesitation, that fear of stepping out of line, you watch the moment pass you by. The truth is, if you keep living like that, you will spend your whole life standing at a door that's already unlocked, waiting for someone else to open it for you. The hard truth, and the liberating truth, is that no one is coming to tell you that you're ready. No one is going to take you by the hand and say, "It's time to live your dream now." The people you're waiting on, they're too busy dealing with their own lives. And sometimes they'll never understand your vision, not because it's bad, but because it wasn't given to them. It was given to you. I remember talking to a man who had been an accountant for 2 decades. He was skilled, he was respected, but he was miserable. Every Sunday night he would feel the dread creeping in, knowing Monday morning was just hours away. When I asked him why he didn't change careers, he said, "My father told me accounting was safe. He's proud of me for sticking with it. I don't want to disappoint him." And there it was. He was sacrificing his happiness for the sake of keeping someone else comfortable. One day, after years of quiet suffering, he picked up a camera. He had always loved photography, but had never dared to see it as more than a hobby. He didn't ask his father, his colleagues, or his friends for their blessing. He just started. Slowly at first, shooting weddings on weekends, taking photos for local magazines. And then all at once, when a travel company hired him for an overseas assignment. Within a few years, he was traveling the world, capturing breathtaking landscapes, living a life that made him excited to get out of bed in the morning. Do you think his father was upset? No. He was proud, prouder than ever, because he saw his son finally come alive. This is the thing most people don't realize. Those you're afraid of disappointing might actually respect you more when you choose authenticity over approval. But even if they don't understand, you owe it to yourself to live a life that is yours, not one designed to please an audience that isn't even watching as closely as you think. Approval is addictive. We get it once, and we start chasing it like a drug, afraid to move without it. But you were not born to live at the mercy of other people's opinions. You were born to lead your own life. Ask yourself this. What have you been postponing because you're waiting for permission? Is it starting a business? Moving to a new city? Ending a toxic relationship? Going back to school? Writing a book? You already know what it is. It's been whispering to you for months, maybe years. But you've been silencing it with excuses. Now's not the right time. I need to save more money. I don't want to upset anyone. I need to get better first. Those excuses are just fear in disguise. And fear will always give you a reason to wait. Tonight, I want you to make a decision. Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Decide that you will stop asking, "Do you think I should?" and start saying, "I've decided I will." Because the day you stop waiting for permission is the day you start truly living. When you take ownership of your choices, you take ownership of your life. You don't have to be reckless. You don't have to throw everything away overnight. But you do have to take one step forward without waiting for someone else to push you. Here's the challenge I'm giving you. Write down that one thing you've been holding back on. Just one. And then commit to taking a single action toward it within the next 7 days. That action could be sending an email, making a phone call, signing up for a class, creating a plan. It doesn't matter how small it seems. What matters is that it's movement. Momentum is built one action at a time. And once you take that first step, you'll realize the wall in front of you was only ever a shadow. Your life is not a group project. You don't need a consensus. You don't need a panel of judges scoring your decisions. The most powerful shifts happen when you stop outsourcing your choices to others and start trusting yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are the one who has to live with the life you create, or the one you don't. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay. You are the someone. You are the permission. And your time is now. Permission is one of the biggest illusions we carry with us into adulthood. As children, we're conditioned to ask before we act. We raise our hands in class. We wait for the teacher to call our name before speaking. We ask our parents before leaving the table. And while that makes sense for a child's safety and structure, something dangerous happens when we carry that same mindset into our grown-up dreams. We end up waiting for someone else to authorize our lives. We treat our passions, our goals, and our future like we're waiting for a hall pass. But in the real world, there is no principal, no official stamp, no gatekeeper with a clipboard saying, "All right, you can go live now." Permission is a myth. The door you're waiting to have opened is already unlocked. But you're holding yourself back because you've convinced yourself someone else is in control of the key. Look around at the people who have achieved extraordinary things. Most of them didn't have a perfect background or a formal invitation to start. They simply decided to move forward without permission. Take Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She didn't have a fashion degree. She had never worked in clothing design or manufacturing. She was selling fax machines door to door. But she had an idea for a product that would help women feel more confident, and she refused to let her lack of credentials stop her. She didn't wait for a boardroom full of experts to tell her it was a good idea. She didn't ask permission from an industry that had no idea who she was. She took $5,000 of her own savings, researched how to make a prototype, and started calling manufacturers herself. The first few told her no, the next few ignored her, but eventually one said yes, and the rest is history. She became the youngest self-made female billionaire in America. That is the power of acting without waiting for someone to give you the go-ahead. The truth is, most people aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. You might be imagining that the whole world is watching, waiting to judge your every move, but the reality is that everyone is busy worrying about their own lives. You're waiting on for permission. They probably aren't even paying attention. And if they are, their approval will be based on their own fears, limitations, and beliefs, not yours. So why would you let someone else's comfort zone dictate the size of your life? I've seen countless people freeze because they're afraid of stepping outside of what's normal. I've had people say to me, "I'm not sure if I'm ready to make this move. My family might not understand." Or, "My friends might think I'm crazy." And I tell them, of course they might not understand. It's not their dream. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. That means you are the only one who can see it clearly enough to pursue it. Asking for permission is like handing someone else your pen and expecting them to write your story better than you can. There's a mindset shift I want you to make starting today. You are the gatekeeper. You are the authority on your own life. You hold the power to approve your own dreams. Every time you hesitate because you think you need someone else to say yes, remind yourself that the yes you need is your own. Write it down. Post it somewhere you'll see every day. When you start to doubt yourself, read it again. I am the gatekeeper. This is not just motivational fluff. It's the truth. When you own your decisions, you own your future. If you're thinking, but what if I fail? I want you to flip that question. What if you never try? What if you look back in 5 years and realize you stayed stuck because you were waiting for a nod from someone who never cared enough to give it. Which is worse, trying and falling short, or never knowing what could have been. I'd rather fail on my own terms than live safely inside someone else's idea of who I should be. Here's your challenge for this week. Identify one thing you've been holding back on because you feel like you don't have permission. Maybe it's launching a side hustle, applying for a position that feels out of reach, learning a new skill, or even changing the way you live your daily life. Then, take one concrete action toward it without asking anyone's opinion first. Don't post about it for validation. Don't check with 3 friends. Just do it because you've decided it matters to you. That's the muscle you need to build, the ability to act on your own conviction. The day you stop waiting for permission is the day you start living freely. Freedom isn't just about having options. It's about owning the right to choose without apology. If you want to reinvent yourself, no one else needs to sign off on it. And if anyone tells you that you can't, remind yourself that they don't have the authority to decide what's possible for you. Only you do. The myth of permission has kept too many people living lives that feel small and safe. It's time to break that myth. It's time to stop asking, "Can I?" and start saying, "Watch me." Some people believe reinvention is this long, complicated process that takes years of planning, endless resources, and the perfect timing. They picture it like a giant mountain they'll have to climb someday when they're ready. And because that mountain seems so huge, they keep standing at the base, staring up, telling themselves, "One day, when I have more time, more money, more confidence, then I'll start." But the truth is, reinvention doesn't begin with resources, and it doesn't begin with opportunity. It begins with a single decision. A decision you make in one moment, often when you've had enough of the way things are. Change isn't about slowly gathering enough courage over the years. It's about flipping the switch in your mind from, "I wish" to, "I will." I once worked with a woman named Julia who hated her job. She was in a toxic corporate environment that drained her energy every single day. She would come home exhausted, barely able to engage with her kids, feeling like her life was being stolen one meeting at a time. For years, she talked about wanting to leave, but every time the idea came up, she would push it aside with reasons. The benefits are good. The pay is decent. I'm too busy right now to make a change. But one Tuesday afternoon, she had a moment. Her boss belittled her in a meeting, and something in her broke. She realized she was done, completely done. By Friday, she had updated her resume, applied to 5 new positions, and enrolled in an online course to upgrade her skills. Less than 2 months later, she was in a new role at a company that valued her, paid her more, and allowed her to be present with her family again. The shift didn't take years. The shift happened in an instant, the moment she decided she was no longer willing to tolerate the way things were. That's how it works. We talk about change like it's this gradual, external process, but in reality the internal decision comes first, and it's immediate. Once you decide, your mind starts finding a way. You notice opportunities you would have ignored before. You take actions you've been postponing for months. And every small step builds momentum, making the path forward clearer than it's ever been. The decision is the catalyst. Without it, nothing changes. With it, everything changes. The problem is that we often avoid making decisions because decisions feel final. They feel risky. We think, "What if I choose wrong?" But the real risk isn't in deciding. It's in waiting. Every day you hesitate, you're living a version of your life you don't actually want. You're building habits and patterns that make it harder to leave later. If you're afraid to make a big decision, remember this. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You just have to be willing to say, "I'm moving forward," and trust yourself to figure it out as you go. Think about the most meaningful changes in your life so far. Maybe it was choosing a career, ending a relationship, moving to a new city, or starting a business. Chances are, the moment you committed to the change, You didn't have all the answers. You just knew you couldn't keep doing what you were doing. That's the moment of power. That's the moment when you stop drifting and start steering. I want you to ask yourself right now, what's one area of your life that you've been tolerating but secretly want to change? Maybe it's your health, your work, your relationships, or even your mindset. Then ask yourself an even harder question. How long have you been waiting to decide? If the answer is months or years, you already know what you need to do. You don't need to think about it for another 6 months. You need to decide today. And here's the thing. Decisions don't have to be loud or dramatic. They don't require an announcement or anyone else's approval. Sometimes the most life-changing decisions happen quietly in your heart when you simply say to yourself, I'm done living this way. But once you make that promise to yourself, you have to honor it. That's how you build trust in yourself. Every time you make a decision and follow through, you reinforce the belief that you can count on you. So here's your call to action. Choose one area of your life where you're ready for reinvention and make the decision today to start. Write it down. Say it out loud. Let it be real. And then, in the next 24 hours, take one tangible action that reflects that decision. It could be sending an email, making a call, clearing your calendar for something important, or simply saying no to something that doesn't align with your new direction. The decision starts the momentum, but the action locks it in. Reinvention isn't about waiting for the stars to align. It's about deciding that your life matters too much to keep living on autopilot. The most powerful thing you can say is, I've decided. Because once you truly decide, you've already taken the first step toward becoming the person you were meant to be. People often think reinvention has to be this massive, dramatic leap. Quitting your job overnight, moving to another country, starting a completely different life in one bold move. That image is exciting, but it's also intimidating, and because it feels so big, most people never do it. They convince themselves they're not ready, that they need to wait for the perfect moment to make that giant jump. And so years go by without any real change. But here's the truth, the most lasting reinventions usually don't happen in one sudden leap. They happen through small, consistent steps that create big shifts over time. It's like turning a ship at sea. You don't swing it 180 degrees in an instant. You make small adjustments to the wheel, and those small adjustments, carried out consistently, change your entire destination. When I first decided I wanted to become a speaker, I didn't start on big stages in front of thousands of people. I started in small community events, church groups, local meetups, even small staff meetings. Sometimes it was 5 people in a room, sometimes it was 20. I spoke for free because I wasn't chasing money at that point, I was chasing mastery. Those small opportunities gave me the chance to practice, to refine my message, to figure out what worked and what didn't. Every time I stood in front of an audience, no matter how small, I was moving one step closer to the vision I had in my mind. And eventually, those small steps built the experience and the reputation that opened the doors to the big stages. Looking back, those humble beginnings weren't a detour. They were the path. The problem is that in our instant gratification culture, we want the transformation without the process. We want the big reveal without the quiet, unglamorous steps in between. But real reinvention is built in the day-to-day choices that seem small in the moment, but accumulate into something powerful. Think about a person who's out of shape and wants to run a marathon. If they tried to run 26 miles tomorrow, they'd likely injure themselves or quit halfway through. But if they start with 1 mile, then 3, then 5, and keep building, they eventually cross that finish line. That's how it works in any area of life. Small steps create the capacity for big change. The beauty of starting small is that it removes the excuse of, I can't. You may not be able to change everything in a day, but you can do one thing today that moves you forward. That might mean signing up for a class, making a phone call, setting aside 30 minutes to work on your craft, or simply choosing a healthier meal. Those actions might feel insignificant in isolation, but stacked over weeks, months, and years, they completely reshape your life. I've seen people completely change careers through this principle. One man I know was working full time in a job he didn't love, but he dreamed of becoming a software developer. He didn't quit his job right away. Instead, he committed to coding for 1 hour each night after work. At first, it felt slow, and he questioned whether it would make a difference. But after a year, he had built a portfolio, gained enough skill to take on freelance projects, and within 2 years, he had transitioned into a full-time tech role. That leap, which looked massive from the outside, was actually the result of hundreds of small, intentional steps. If you've been putting off reinvention because the end goal feels too far away, I want you to remember this: the only way to eat the elephant is one bite at a time. Stop looking at the mountain and getting discouraged by how high it is. Just focus on the next step in front of you. The question isn't, how do I get all the way to the top? It's, what's one thing I can do today to move upward? That one thing matters more than you think. Here's your challenge: choose the smallest, simplest step you can take toward your reinvention, and do it within the next 24 hours. Don't wait for a big breakthrough moment. Create momentum through small, consistent actions. When you see someone who's reinvented themselves, what you're seeing is the result of hundreds of days where they made choices most people overlook because they seem too small to matter. But those small choices are the bricks that build the life you want. Reinvention isn't a single leap, it's a staircase. And you climb it not by wishing you were at the top, but by taking the next step in front of you again and again until one day you look back and realize you've completely changed your life. You cannot step into a new chapter of your life while clinging to the identity you had in the last one. This is one of the hardest truths about reinvention, because our identity feels safe, familiar, and predictable. We tell ourselves, this is just who I am, as if it's fixed in stone. But the reality is, much of who you are today is simply a collection of habits, patterns, and labels you've repeated long enough that you believe them. And if you want to reinvent yourself, you have to be willing to let go of the parts of your identity that no longer serve you, even if they've been with you for years. I remember a friend of mine who was known as the party guy all through college and into his 20s. That was his brand. He was the one who always showed up with the loud energy, the wild stories, and the ability to make any night unforgettable. But deep down, he wanted something different. He wanted to work with young people as a mentor to make a real difference in their lives. The problem was, his old identity didn't fit that new vision. Every time he tried to take a step toward his goal, his old friends would joke, "You, a mentor. Come on, man, that's not you." And for a while, he let those voices hold him back. Then one day, he realized that the party guy identity wasn't actually who he was. It was just who he had been. He started declining invitations that kept him stuck in that image. He sought out new circles of people who shared his passion for helping youth. It wasn't easy, and it meant leaving behind some friendships that couldn't support the new version of him. But today, he's leading programs that impact hundreds of young people every year. And he says the only thing he regrets is not letting go sooner. Letting go of an old identity is uncomfortable because it feels like losing a piece of yourself. You might even feel like you're betraying the people who know you in that role. But here's what I want you to hear. You are not betraying anyone by growing. The people who truly care about you will want to see you evolve. And the ones who resist your change, they're just uncomfortable because your growth challenges their comfort zone. You can't let someone else's fear of change keep you in a version of yourself you've outgrown. Sometimes, the old identity is tied to an accomplishment or a role you were proud of. Maybe you've been the top performer in your company for years, and now you want to change careers. That can feel like walking away from the very thing that makes you valuable in people's eyes. Or maybe you've been the caretaker in your family for so long that the thought of prioritizing your own dreams feels selfish. But holding on to an old identity just because it once served you is like wearing clothes that no longer fit. You can try to make them work, but eventually they'll hold you back and make you uncomfortable. If you want to step into a new season, you have to release the labels, habits, and environments tied to the old one. This might mean redefining yourself in conversations. If people introduce you as the accountant, and you know you're moving toward becoming a writer, start saying, "I'm a writer who used to be an accountant." Own the new version of yourself before the world does. It might mean letting go of certain routines that keep you stuck. If you're trying to get healthy, but your identity is tied to being the person who always goes out for late night fast food with friends, you have to change that pattern. Here's the truth. Every reinvention requires a kind of death. The death of old habits. The death of outdated self-images. The death of other people's version of you. And that's not something to fear. It's something to embrace. Because on the other side of that letting go is the space you need to become the person you were meant to be. I want you to think right now about the identities you've been carrying that no longer fit. Maybe you've been the dependable one to the point of neglecting your own needs. Maybe you've been the practical one so long that you've stopped dreaming. Maybe you've been the funny one because it's easier than being vulnerable. Whatever it is, I want you to ask yourself, is this who I truly am or just who I've been? And if it's the latter, are you willing to set it down? Here's your challenge. Write down 3 labels or roles you've been living by that are holding you back from your next chapter. Then, next to each one, write the new identity you want to step into. And from this day forward, start making choices as if you're already that new version of yourself. Because the sooner you let go of the person you used to be, the sooner you can become the person you're meant to be. If you try to reinvent yourself while surrounding yourself with people who only see the old you, they will keep you anchored to the version of yourself you are trying to outgrow. Human beings are deeply influenced by the company they keep. The conversations you have, the energy you're around, the expectations people place on you. These things either pull you forward or hold you back. It's not that the people in your life are bad or that they don't care. Often, they genuinely believe they're protecting you by encouraging you to stay in familiar territory. But familiar doesn't always mean right. Familiar can be the very thing that prevents your growth. If you want to step into a new version of yourself, you have to intentionally surround yourself with people who believe in the person you are becoming, not just the person you've been. When Oprah Winfrey started her career in television, there were many people who told her she wasn't right for the medium. Some even said she didn't have the right look, the right style, or the right voice for TV. If she had stayed in environments filled with those voices, she might have believed them. Instead, she sought out mentors and friends who saw her potential. She found people who didn't just encourage her, but also challenged her to grow into her vision. Those relationships created a kind of protective bubble around her dreams, shielding them from the doubt and negativity that could have crushed them before they had the chance to develop. I've seen this happen in everyday life as well. A man I coach wanted to start his own landscaping business. His friends, though well-meaning, laughed at the idea. They said things like, "You'll never make enough money doing that," or "Why would you leave a steady job for something so risky?" If he had listened to them, he would still be stuck in an office job that made him miserable. But he started connecting with other entrepreneurs, people who understood what it meant to take a risk and build something from the ground up. Those conversations were different. They were filled with problem-solving, encouragement, and examples of success. Within 2 years, his business was thriving. And some of those same friends who doubted him were now asking him for advice. Here's the thing, when you decide to reinvent yourself, you're already fighting an internal battle. You're pushing against your own doubts, fears, and insecurities. The last thing you need is to be surrounded by people who feed those doubts instead of helping you silence them. You need a circle that reflects the future you, not the past you. This doesn't always mean cutting people out completely, but it does mean being intentional about where you spend your time and energy. You can still love people from a distance while protecting the mental space you need to grow. There's a simple way to evaluate your circle. After spending time with someone, ask yourself, do I feel more capable, more inspired, more committed to my vision? Or do I feel drained, doubtful, and discouraged? Your body and mind will tell you the truth if you're willing to listen. The people who leave you feeling empowered are the ones you need to keep close during your reinvention. This is why so many successful people join mastermind groups, mentorship programs, or networking communities. They know that being in the right environment accelerates growth. It's not just about advice. It's about energy, accountability, and seeing what's possible when you're around people who are already doing what you want to do. If you've been trying to make a change and it feels harder than it should, ask yourself if your current environment is working for or against you. If you're constantly defending your dreams to those around you, that's a sign you need to find a space where your dreams are understood without explanation. Surround yourself with people who make you feel like your goals are not only possible but inevitable. Here's your challenge. Make a list of the 5 people you spend the most time with. For each person, write down whether they pull you forward or hold you back. Then make a conscious choice to spend more time with the ones who push you toward your future and less time with the ones who keep you tied to your past. And if you don't currently have people who inspire you, go find them. Join a group, attend events, take a class. Put yourself in environments where the kind of growth you want is normal. Reinvention isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become, and who you become is shaped by the people you let into your life. Choose your circle wisely, because the right people will remind you of your potential on the days you forget it yourself. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is going to knock on your door one morning with the perfect plan for your life, offering you the exact opportunity you've been waiting for. Your reinvention is not anyone else's job. It is yours. This can feel like a heavy truth at first, but it is also the most empowering truth you will ever accept. Because the moment you realize your life is your responsibility, you stop waiting and start creating. You stop looking to others to hand you your future and start building it with your own hands. I once met a man at a seminar who told me he had been dreaming of starting his own business for over 5 years. Every year he would say, "I'm just waiting for the right time." When I asked him what that meant, he said, "You know, when the economy is better, when I have more savings, when things settle down at home." I looked him in the eye and said, "Those conditions you're waiting for might never come. The right opportunity isn't found. It's created." That night, something clicked for him. He went home, registered his business name online, and committed to making it happen. 6 months later, he was fully self-employed. Did everything go perfectly? Of course not. But because he took responsibility, he learned, adapted, and made it work. Too many people hand over the steering wheel of their life to other people, to circumstances, to luck. They say things like, "I would do it if my spouse supported me," or "I could change if my boss gave me a chance," or "I'll reinvent myself when life slows down." But life doesn't slow down, and the people around you aren't living with the weight of your unfulfilled dreams. You are. Waiting for someone else to make the first move is like waiting for a ship that's never coming. You're standing on the shore with all the tools to build your own boat. But instead of starting, you're scanning the horizon, hoping someone will sail in and take you where you want to go. Taking responsibility means owning every choice you've made so far, and every choice you will make from here on out. It means accepting that you might not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can always control your response. That's the one thing no one can take away from you. Your power to decide how you will act. And if you're serious about reinventing yourself, that decision has to be made daily. Every morning you have to wake up and remind yourself, this is my life, and I will live it on my terms. When you embrace full responsibility, you stop blaming and start problem solving. You stop saying, I can't because, and start asking, how can I? That shift changes everything. It changes the way you think, the way you act, and the way opportunities show up in your life. People are drawn to those who take ownership. They see you as someone who gets things done, someone who can be trusted with responsibility, and that attracts even more possibilities. The truth is, responsibility is freedom. When you own your life, you're no longer at the mercy of other people's decisions or external circumstances. You become the cause instead of the effect. You start making things happen instead of waiting for things to happen to you. Yes, it means you can't hide behind excuses anymore. But it also means you never have to wait for permission or approval again. You are in charge. Here's the challenge. Identify one area of your life where you've been waiting for someone else to take the lead. Maybe it's your career, your health, your finances, or your relationships. Then, decide one action you will take this week to move forward without waiting for anyone else's involvement. It doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be yours. Because the moment you take ownership, the moment you stop waiting, you begin to take control of your future. Your life is your responsibility. That is not a burden. It is a gift. It means you don't have to wait for the stars to align. You don't have to hope someone will choose you. You don't have to pray for a lucky break. You can choose yourself. You can give yourself the break you've been hoping for. And you can start building the life you want, step by step, decision by decision right now. Thank you guys.